Great. So my voice is audible, I'm sure. So let's start the day, guys. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone from all parts of the world who have registered for the great webinar which is happening today. Hope you and your family are doing safe in the COVID times. Our best wishes are with all of you. Now, to begin with, let me introduce myself and the company to you. My name is Nitin Naveen, and I'll be your host for the day. I'm working as Vice President Innovation and Strategy at AI CoreSpot. Further, I've been joined by my colleague Arvind and Naveen, who will also assist me in keeping the event lively and resolving technical glitches if it comes in between. So, thanks a lot to them for putting in hard work and making this one a great success. We'll try to provide a seamless experience to all of you so that you can gain maximum output out of the same. Let me provide a brief background to all of you about AI Core Spot and how we started. We started last year, backed up by our InfoVision, who is our knowledge and innovation partner, and Digit7, who is our technology partner. Our mission is to serve as a hub for information regarding Industry 4.0 technologies, which includes AI, ML, deep learning, digital twin, robotics, IoT, AR, VR, blockchain, 5G, drone, analytics, edge AI, edge computing, cloud, metaverse, and so on. The focus is to provide all of you a deep dive in all the sectors wherever technology is there. And every month, the theme is different. We are gaining momentum every month. Our aim is to be number one AI driven community all over the world so that like minded people like you can be a part of the same in supporting, growing, and making it a success. We'll enrich the content through digital contents, blogs, videos, newsletters, podcasts to shed light on the ever evolving industry. The focus is to do industry backed webinars and hybrid events. The knowledge base will be made from reliable data through industry leaders, subject matter experts, thought leaders, and our partners InfoVision and Digit7. Today, we are having a lovely and unique webinar around a great theme which covers how retail innovation is shaping e commerce. So, if you want to know trends in retail innovation, the increasing growth of e retail, exploring omni-channel retailing, the future of retail, and so on, then you are in the right place. We'll go all over it throughout the panel discussion and give lots of insights to you. There are lots more in store for this month as well as subsequent months, with focus on banking, financial, insurance, telecom, retail, healthcare, supply chain, energy, utility, manufacturing, and so on. So request all of you to go through our website, which is aicorespot.io, for future updates. Also, please like our social media handles, which will keep you all updated on everything what we propose to offer in the coming months to follow. Before starting with the day, I would like to highlight few things so that it can set up the tone for the amazing learning and networking day. A special mention about our knowledge and innovation partner, which is InfoVision. It is an end-to-end IT and business services provider, specializing in providing technology transformation and innovation projects for over 25 years across multiple industries. They have more than 3,000 technology professionals working across 12 global locations, including US, Latin America, Middle East, and India. They serve over 65 customers across banking, financial services, telecom, media, retail, consumer goods, healthcare, and manufacturing industries. The core services which they offer includes digital engineering services comprising of cloud, big data, analytics, DevOps, application services, legacy modernization, digital quality assurance, mobile API, microservices, social media analysis and research, including cybersecurity as well. They also have an unique state-of-the-art research and innovation lab which they opened recently named Digit7 in Richardson, Texas, with five great products which includes dgrab, Napcard, TagSquare, DigitSelves, and FlyRobo. The beauty about all the five products is that they are customizable, cost-effective, and can be used in every industry where technology is needed. With their strong technology capabilities and delivery expertise, we are sure that they can help anyone in their transformation journey, provide technology needs to build future-proof model and excellence into one's and customer expectations. So to get in touch with them, kindly log on to the website which is infovision.com and leave your details through the contact us section. Now, moving on and coming to our community partners for today, it includes Roots and Rayleigh who come together to make this webinar a success. A special mention to attendees of the event who registered and came today to achieve their objectives through this forum. At the end of the day, if you gain things out of this or get to know with each other, then our core objective as a platform will be achieved. Further, if anyone wants to ask questions, they can type it in the Q&A section, which is visible at the right corner of the menu option. You can type in as and when the panel member speaks, and we'll try to get it answered as per the time permitted. There's also a hand button at the bottom of the screen through which you can even raise the hand and come to the stage to ask questions to speakers as well. Now let's start the day. Let me hand over the stage to Samir, who is Chief Business Officer handling retail, consumer, and logistics from InfoVision, who is the moderator of the panel discussion as well. He's joined by James, former Chief E-commerce and Customer Experience Officer at Roots, and Zach, Director of E-commerce at Rayleigh's. So over to you, Samir, to begin this exciting panel discussion.
Thank you, Nitin. Really appreciate that. So, and welcome and good morning to everyone. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon to everyone who's joining across the globe for this webinar. So, as Nitin mentioned, I'm taking care of the retail consumer vertical at InfoVision, and I've been very passionate about the retail and the recent trends on the innovation side on the e-commerce in retail industry. So, and this is my passion, and that's why I'm joining this panel discussion as a moderator. I welcome James and Zach to the panel, and I would request James if you can give a brief introduction about yourself, and followed by Zach.
Certainly. Thank you for having me here. I have been leading e-commerce as well as customer experience at Roots for almost 24 years until recently. Now I have a consulting practice and have actually had the opportunity to spend some time away from my career exploring some personal passions. So what e-commerce definitely is one of my passions and something that I'm really trying to explore as I travel different places around the world.
Absolutely. Thank you. Over to you, Zach, please.
Yeah. Good morning, Samir, and thank you for the introduction. And James, glad to be on the panel with you today. I'm Zach Wilson. I'm the Director of E-commerce for Rayleigh Supermarkets, a small regional grocery chain here in Northern California, just recently expanded out to Arizona with the acquisition of Bash's'. I've been leading the e-commerce efforts for the last 5 years for Rayleigh's. So as you can imagine, a lot of things have changed in the digital world around grocery, especially through the pandemic, and how we're coming out of that and what our approach is to the future. So never envisioned a grocery store being so digitally engaged, but we have a lot of interesting things happening over the next couple of months. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. And Zach, I'll start with the point that you actually mentioned already. So Zach, not only for the grocery chain, and I know this is open for both James and Zach, both of you guys. What are the trends that we need to really watch out for from a retail e-commerce standpoint? I know, Zach, you mentioned about the grocery, how digitally digital connected the grocery chains are right now. And James, with your experience of 24 years on the digital e-commerce or the e-commerce from the retail's perspective, I would like to get a point of view from both of you guys.
Yeah, you want to take that first?
Yeah, please, Zach. Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
I'll go ahead and start. So it comes really down to three things for grocery specifically. And that's how fast can we get the product to the consumer? How fresh can we keep that product? And then ultimately, how do we leverage technology to be more efficient and more effective within our store operations? So looking first at the fast part, as you know, technology has evolved, we've had to evolve our own internal tech stacks in order to be more efficient. So the days of running off of slow servers or running off of slow processes just doesn't function very well. So looking into how we can expedite some of those things are definitely around technology and relaying information are going to be huge. The fresh part is interesting because, you know, one of our missions here at Rayleigh's is to change the way people eat one plate at a time. And being in the farm to fork capital of the United States here in California, it's easy to get product from the farm to the shelf or from the farm to the customer's table. But now customers want to know, what farm did it come from? How long did it take for it to actually get to me? And then at what cost did it take to get here? And cost can mean multiple things, from price to the environmental impact, things like that. And then the last piece I would say is, as the world continues to evolve and our small world and grocery continues to evolve, how do we get products to consumers at a discounted price due to the fact that our labor costs continue to rise? So how do we make it more efficient and more effective for us to either fulfill orders or let customers come through our stores without having to go through a check stand, even down to expedited payment? So I would say it's really those three key areas for us.
Thank you, Zach. James, over to you. I would like to hear your views as well, please.
Certainly. I mean, from my background of specialty branded retail, it's a little different. I mean, obviously, we want to deliver product quickly and efficiently, and also really connect with our local environments. But I think when we look at branded retail, you're going to a certain brand because you actually have an affinity to that product or that company, and really the opportunity to take some of the options that you can do around customization of everyday products, say, for example, shampoo, and customize that at scale, or take some of the options that are really associated with the abilities to do compostable e-commerce around headless e-commerce, and take the transaction away from the platform into a different environment, say chat, or some sort of video, or a marketplace where you're actually going through and chatting with a local store through WhatsApp or whatever it may be, and then actually having the ability to select your payment provider from a number of different providers, as well as your delivery mechanism, whether it's someone on a scooter or it's a national postal carrier. Some of these things are already happening around the world, but we haven't really seen them come at scale to North America. And I think as we start to see the changes that have happened from consumers to migrate back to store environment in a way, customers I want to take away or move away from the convenience that they experienced over the last 2 years when everything was moving so quickly and heavily in digital. So the ability to actually serve that customer in a really informed and efficient manner when they get into the store location is going to be key. And I think looking at the ability to launch location-aware apps, as an example, or other things that really start to leverage the ability to recognize the fact that you've got a tremendous amount of data that's probably sitting in a lot of different silos that could be aggregated together in a consumer data platform and then presented to the customer as well as a sales associate in that physical location is sort of where I see the nirvana happening. Is it there yet? No, I'm not. I haven't seen anyone do an amazing experience at it yet. I would say travel is probably the closest that I've seen, where when you land in a certain city, a lot of times you'll get a notification for a local transit like Uber or Grab.
Right.
And then with the super apps in Asia, you can start to understand how do I get my groceries delivered to my home as soon as I get home, instead of arriving home from your business trip and seeing your empty refrigerator.
Absolutely. And I think I completely concur with you guys. But what I'm going to do is, we spoke about a lot of things. Let's kind of put some things in perspective, right? We spoke about the supply chain, or how to deliver the products, how effectively to deliver the product to the customer. That's one component of it. We also spoke about the customer experience in terms of whether the in-store customer experience or e-commerce customer experience, or how to engage with the customer. That's the second point we talked about. The next thing we talked about was more about the technology piece of it. When I say technology, I think, James, you mentioned about the headless commerce. You mentioned about chatbots and all those things. So we talked about the technology piece of it. And then we also spoke about the sustainability. You mentioned about how does a customer relate to a particular brand? Why does he want to pick up a brand? So we spoke about a lot of things, and finally we also spoke about the data part of it, or I would say the customer segmentation or personalized promotions, personalized campaign. And I think, James, you mentioned about it, targeted about that the best you have seen is the location based or the geo based targeted campaigns, wherein, let's say, if you land in Mexico, you start getting the advertisements of Uber in Mexico or Lyft in Mexico, for example. I don't know whether a Lyft is in there in Mexico or not, but I'm just saying. Uh, but what I'm saying, what I'm trying to say is the local kind of campaigns out there. So let's pick one by one. I'll start with first of all the supply chain piece of it. Now, and I'll start, Zach. I'll start with you. With the COVID coming in, right? How have you seen the supply chain gearing up for two things? One is from a retail standpoint, second is the e-commerce retail standpoint, and third is the grocery retail standpoint. There are three components of it. So how have you? I know for you it will be the same, but I'm just saying that how have you seen this evolve, and what are the trends that you're seeing in supply chain as we move forward?
Yeah, that's a great question, Samir, and it's a difficult question to answer. And the reason why is because the supply chain was so disruptive by COVID over the last couple of years that it's taken a long time for it to recover. And
Yes.
going through the process of understanding, what potential products or line extensions of products are going to be available and having visibility to it before it even gets to our stores was a huge challenge. So you're
Right.
seeing more and more companies start to leverage blockchain and other technology
True.
capabilities to open those doors to retailers so they have better visibility.
Yep.
Because one of the other biggest challenges that we saw too is, the way that we operate, we share a lot of our product inventory with customers who are shopping in stores. So
True.
by the time a customer placed an order online for a pickup or a delivery, that product most likely wasn't going to be available because of how fast it was moving.
True.
So one of the things that I've seen a lot of retailers start to do is grasp this notion and idea of how long does it take for a product to get from distribution to the store, and then by the time that you get it from a broker or from a distribution or warehouse, how much of that product are you actually going to get? Because the other thing, to James's point, is this personalization and convenience factor. It really drives what customers see and the perception of e-commerce
Yes.
specifically. So if we're not guaranteeing that a customer is going to get a particular product, then it's driving up the substitutions or the out of stock rates. And it's also going to cause more of a stress for the consumer and lose that trust in that brand or that for us, the grocery location. The other aspect that I would add to this is as we continue to evolve this process, one thing that we've also seen is the line extensions have reduced in certain categories. So you have less options when it comes to pasta, as an example.
Yeah.
But consumers are willing to buy whatever pasta you have available because that's the only pasta that you have. But it's also opened the doors to extensions into categories in which we didn't think were going to have as much popularity. So think about non-meat meat, so
Mhm.
the genetically grown or lab grown type of products and things like that.
Got it. And Zach, one more point that I would want to ask on that perspective is the last mile, I would say, connectivity, or the last mile, how you deliver to the consumers. So now I think we saw, I would say, the beginning of BOPIS, or buy online, pick up in store, or reserve in store, maybe before pandemic, but it really picked up big time on the in the pandemic time, or maybe slightly after post pandemic. And then we had the last mile connectivity providers like Instacart and so on and so forth, which actually kind of they grew the business. And now the people are also integrating with Ubers and the Lyfts of the world so that they can get the last mile connectivity. So what else are the things that you are seeing out there for your grocery chain?
Yeah, and one of the things to call out there, Samir, is a lot of grocers at the onset of the pandemic didn't really have their own built out e-commerce solutions.
Yes, that's
And
true.
they've leveraged DoorDash or they've leveraged Instacart to help support that. But now you're starting to see the shift over to them standing up their internal platforms. And that's why you've seen companies like Instacart come out and start providing white label solutions for those retailers. From a last mile perspective, delivery was a luxury option, and then it became a necessity.
This is it.
And everybody knows that it's expensive.
It
So
is.
one of the things that retailers are struggling with right now is how do we pay for this and not pass that cost off to the consumer, especially as the global economy is changing so fast right now. So one thing to look at, and James mentioned this notion of headless commerce or unified commerce, is you want to own your customer and all the data behind it. So the more and more you partner with these third party platforms, the more and more you're sharing it. and doesn't become your own data. So as you continue to grow and you evolve and you stand up your own version of your own e-commerce platform or whatever that solution may be, that data is going to be imperative for you to be successful so that you can continue to personalize and drive that custom shopping experience for those consumers. And that goes all the way down to last mile delivery.
Absolutely. James, coming back to you, James, from a generic e-commerce, from a supply chain, again, I'm coming to the supply chain and the last mile connectivity. What are the trends that you have observed in your experience?
I think looking at the amount of inventory that's out in the marketplace today, I think is something that a lot of retailers are starting to try to figure out. How do we maximize value out of their investments? Because ultimately we have, some chains have hundreds or thousands of stores. As a result of that, you're going to have inventory in disparate locations at the same time as you probably will have a centralized warehouse. And how do you get the information about the inventory position accurately to a consumer that may be looking at, shop on Main Street versus what's available to them as an e-commerce transaction? So I think to Zach's point, the ability to actually have accurate and visible and transparent inventory information is certainly key. And when I saw companies that were quote unquote winning during the pandemic, they were the ones that actually had at least a near to real time viewpoint or vantage point that they could not only surface to customers as well as they could surface to their sales associates and their e-commerce customers, both on a global as well as a local scale. I think when you look at the motivation to have a product delivered to you instantly is somewhat different when you talk about general e-commerce. Like, for example, I probably don't need a pair of shoes immediately unless I'm going to a job interview or I'm going on a date or I'm going out and I've broken the heel in my shoe. And that changes things drastically, and you become a very targeted consumer looking for a specific product. And so as a result of that, as a consumer, I'm not looking for necessarily free shipping. I'm looking for fast shipping, and the ability to actually have an experience where I can say, you know what, Uber, go pick up the shoes that I just purchased at Main Street Shop. I think to me, that's really valuable and a great service that I'm willing to pay for. I'm willing to pay $35 so I actually look good at my job interview or whatever it may be, as opposed to if I'm doing my holiday shopping, I just want to know that it's there before December 24th when I actually have to give it as a gift and have find time to wrap it. So I think there's different motivations when you talk about supply chain. I think the option or the ability to actually use RFID is something that is starting to rise more commonly. And as a result of that, the inventory positions are actually getting more accurate, and there's less concern about sort of safety stock or inventory in flight and breakage and shrink, because you can actually scan as opposed to doing your once a year physical count that hopefully trues up to what you think you have. And always there are surprises, and as a result of that, you sort of realize the reasons behind either canceling or underselling items that you've been trying to figure out what the problems were throughout the entire year. But I think just looking back at it, the basics to me about logistics really are the visibility of your inventory, and nothing can underscore that more.
Absolutely, and I'll go a little bit deeper on the visibility part of it. So, as I think from a e-commerce and a retail standpoint, I think the concept of endless aisle was already there. But what I am seeing a little bit of trend is visibility of inventory when you are doing your research on let's say, for example, Google, right? It actually, there are search engines and there are app that shows the inventory for a particular store at a particular location, actually for a product that you're looking for. That's the next level of innovation that I am thinking that is providing the visibility. And obviously, Zach, as you mentioned touched upon the blockchain. I think that is a very key component of the overall inventory visibility across your supply chain, entirely supply chain. Any comments on that one, Zach? And James, I'll start with you, James, this time.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I think looking at the ability to see inventory positions at a local place when you're doing your Google search, and it comes up in the search results in Google Shopping, that's already there. I think from my opinion, the next level of service is something that you're seeing on, for example, in Tokopedia in Indonesia, where I can go and chat with that store, find out that that item is actually available in that store. And then what I was saying earlier is, connect with a Grab driver on a motorbike and have it delivered to me in 2 hours. Like that
Wow.
scenario is happening today. It's actually one that I bought a Garmin for a bike trip from a place 2 hours away. It was, and I, unfortunately dropped my previous one. I needed it, and was
Wow.
willing to pay anything in order to get this thing for my trip at 7 a.m. the next day. As a result of that, chatted with the person on Tokopedia that was managing the local store. We transitioned to WhatsApp. I paid over WhatsApp, and then was chatting with the driver and had real-time visibility of the driver's path to my villa
Location. Yeah.
where I was going the entire time. And he even apologized for not delivering to me within 2 hours. So as a result of that, we haven't seen that level of service in North America yet. I think it's definitely coming, and it's just a matter of time, especially in big markets like Los Angeles or New York.
True. Excellent. Zach, any other point of view on that one, please?
Yeah, I would say that James is spot on. The big challenge that we have here, though, is our systems are so disparate amongst at least the grocery retail industry. So being able to achieve perpetual inventory and show that with definitive accuracy is going to be difficult, especially when you're looking across multiple platforms. So a grocery retailer that operates their own internal e-commerce platform plus is on marketplaces such as DoorDash or Instacart, now they're having to show the same inventory and the same inventory counts for each of those across those websites. So depending on how fast your data is coming from your POS up into your order management system out to the inventory system, it's going to be a difficult challenge to get there. The other thing that we would find difficult is the fresh products. So anything that comes from produce, as an example, apples, we may have 30 apples at one given time, but now those 30 apples may all get pulled at the same time or sold to a customer at the same time. So being able to get to that real-time inventory is ultimately going to be a huge challenge. But to James's point, the customers are already expecting this, and you're seeing the trends happening across the world.
True.
Can I just add one thing to that? And it's a solve that I've seen in a couple of places where for low velocity items, you have the ability to do what I call a fuzzy listing. So a fuzzy listing is the product, but it isn't necessarily a specific color. It's not a specific size. And as a result, you can actually go and speak to the merchant and start to understand what's actually there. So as a result of that, the transaction happens a little offline through chat. Offline to me is different than through the e-commerce platform a little bit. It's still digital, I guess. But as a result of that, you're able to solve some of those problems. And I think when we start to see more of the resale environment taking hold, hopefully from an environmental standpoint, from the apparel sector, for example, there isn't the cost benefit to actually photograph every single one-off piece. And so as a result of that, you'll have more of these opportunities to actually interact with someone, either through video or through chat, to start to understand what you're actually buying. And really, you're just buying the parent SKU. So it helps solve that a little bit, and actually makes the management of your e-commerce platform and data set a little bit easier.
Yeah, and James, I think that's what's led to the growth of like micro fulfillment in the grocery industry as well. So you can almost guarantee almost guarantee in-stock rates at that point. But that fuzzy inventory is something we often lean heavily on, or the low in-stock nomenclature that we put on product tiles, things like that. Yeah.
Right.
So, good point. I'll just go and go into the technology aspect of it. Now, with the way that we have seen the retailers grow, there has been an existing investment in the technologies that they have already made over a period of last few years. Now, I think with the new thing coming in, they need to prioritize the investment, or at least how do they revamp the technology. So, according to you, James, first, I'll start with you. What are the areas, or what do you think are the technologies that most of the retailers are kind of or need to prioritize right now to make sure that they are up to speed with the the innovations that are happening on the e-commerce space right now?
I think from a basic business sense, and it's sort of something that I mentioned earlier, is really maximizing value and investment. So
Mhm.
both your people as well as your inventory, going into a period where we're probably seeing economic contraction. I think maximizing your investments will be key. So, eliminating downtime for your sales associates on the floor. Can they serve online customers? Is there a way to surface inventory in a more accurate way? There's things like that that I think are table stakes, as well as the fact that, and it's a really unsexy, technologically advanced answer, but figuring out revenue attribution. It's something that, we've been talking about it for years. No one's come up with a real solution that really motivates sales or the business unit to really address the needs of the consumer, regardless of where they are. Hopefully, there's some sort of solution, whether technology or operations, that comes up that really solves that problem. Because time and time again, you sort of see organizations that say that they've got it figured out, only to talk to the sales associate that says, "You know what? I don't really want to put that through the POS from a BOPUS perspective. Come over and walk over with me to the POS so we can do this the right way." So there's conversations like that that really are inefficient for the business and the consumer, but they're serving the needs of how we're actually creating our sales associates. Past that, I think looking at how we use AI to scale and scale quickly to address peaks, for example, Black Friday. So you're having your best sales associates or your best customer support people really support the edge case. And when they get to the edge case, or actually, the consumer hopefully is in a situation where they've had a positive experience to date, and they've inputted a tremendous amount of information through the AI interface. It's really a conversation where the sales associate or the customer support person is informed of everything that's happened to date with that interaction. And it's actually a much easier conversation to resolve, as opposed to trying to go through the mass of thousands of people that are all really trying to check out given a short period of time. And there's no way that you can actually, throw enough people at that problem. So as a result of that, you're looking at your hiring and your training to be much shorter,
Correct.
as well as the fact that you can use AI to actually inform and monitor the conversations and start to understand and suggest to sales associates as well as support people what the next best answer should be, because chances are you're probably going to have some seasonal hires that aren't necessarily as experienced as your typical sales associate. So they do need a little more coaching. And as a result of that, hopefully you get a better customer experience and a more efficient experience. So as a result of that, you're cutting your overall labor costs quite significantly. And hopefully the objective is to increase your customer service scores.
Oh, awesome. That's really good. On one side, we are talking about the AI and the ML and all those things in a lot of areas. I think from a technology standpoint, we are also hearing a lot of things which is on the headless commerce, the APIs, and all those things. So Zach, I'll probably start with you. Where do you think that trend is going right now, or why are people talking a lot about all those areas?
Yeah. So speaking about that from the grocery perspective, grocery is a very margin compressed area. So when you make investments in technology, you have to spend wisely. And to James's point, it's about maximizing whatever that spend is. So when we start talking about headless commerce and we talk about API changes and solutions, the biggest thing that comes to mind is the ability to adapt faster to change. Right now, a lot of traditional grocers, are on monolithic systems, and it's very slow and it's very tedious, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of capital to change those technology stacks when you do. So as you continue to evolve, one of the things that we're very cognizant of is what are the core platforms in which we're going to continue to operate on, and then allow us to plug and play with the right vendor that makes the most sense for us. To James's point, talking about AI, as we continue to evolve as a company, especially with technology challenges around supply chain and operation executions and things like that, we want to make sure that we're able to quickly evolve and adapt our systems to allow for us to partner with who makes sense for us. And I know I repeated myself there, but there's an important aspect of that, and that's as the consumer trends change and as our business evolves, we want to make sure that the consumers are shopping the way in which they want to shop, whether that's online or in stores. Mm-hmm. So if we need to plug into as an example, if we need to plug into some sort of marketplace, third-party marketplace, it's a lot easier to do through API calls than it is in the old, web services forms.
Yeah.
So being able to expedite that is going to be instrumental. The other portion I think that it's important is that as you build out these systems, there's a lot of consolidation around technology companies that happen today too. So as those technology companies consolidate, one of the trends that we've seen is that they're offering less services, or they may not offer that service that you've leveraged for the last 5+ years to help execute your business plans. So as those companies evolve, the ability to unplug and plug into the new systems are going to be crucial for at least the grocery industry.
Yeah, absolutely. On the same note, I believe I'll take a little bit deviation from this one. So I'll go into the user or the consumer experience, I would say. When I say, because you mentioned that part, so I would talk about furthermore technologies in terms of, apart from the AI ML, where we are training our engines to kind of give the better experience to the consumers. I think we also would like to talk about a little bit on the AR side of things, or AR VR side of things, and how they are shaping the future of the consumer experience for all the retail industry. And I'll give you one example. I think the AR VR is one thing which picked up big time during the COVID, because the people were not able to go to the store. How to bridge the gap between what is visible on a website and how does it look and look on you was like bridged by like those AR stuff. And there were a lot of retailers, and especially the fashion retailers, who came up with a lot of ideas about magic mirror and all those things at that point in time. But I think that's one thing which is being looked at in a very, very big way from all the retailer perspective. And James, I'll start with you in case with your 24 years in out there, how have you seen this trend shaping up?
I mean, really, we've gone from sort of trying to do a cartoon-like version of a AR or VR filter to something that actually looks fairly realistic. So, when I look at my avatar that I created 10 years ago versus what I can do with a filter on Snapchat, and potentially try on goods, whether it be a watch or try to project the sofa in my living room from a home decor standpoint, things are fairly different. And I think as we look at beauty, hard wearables, as well as home decor, they've done a tremendous job in the last few years of figuring all of this out. With fabrics and apparel and wearables, I think we're just a little bit further away. But the next thing for me, I think, is really trying to understand how we start to create human-like avatars that people can interact with, similar to a sales associate, and similar to the holiday greetings that we send from Santa during the holidays, or deep fake videos you see, having the ability to have a voice interaction with that avatar that's natural, and helps solve some of the accessibility issues that seniors have, as an example, or people with low vision, or even facilitating difficult conversations from a medical stance. So whether it's something that you don't feel comfortable talking about with your friends, family, doctor, whatever it may be, you can have this sort of semi-anonymous conversation with an AR doctor that is an avatar that you start to speak to. And that technology is already existing. We just haven't seen the business application yet come in a significant way where it's really quite scalable and broadly adopted. But it's, I would say within years away of actually happening. And as a result, that's something that I'm really excited about, because it sort of gives you a replication of your sales associate in your store and brings that to an online environment that's scalable. And also the fact that you can have that avatar be any ethnicity, any gender, any sort of size and background. You can dress that person as a brand that you would like. And so really you start to understand how to internationalize and represent your customer, and making sure they feel that they're represented in a scalable way, but to appeal to a very diverse audience, which is really interesting to me.
Zach, your comment, please.
Yeah, thinking about AR VR 2 years ago, it made more sense for hard retail lines and cosmetics and things like that. Not so much for the grocery industry, but as it's become to evolve, one of the big things, or two of the big things that have really come top to mind to us, is how do we leverage that technology as a marketing tool and also an educational tool. So you'll have the ability for brands to tell their story in a different way through AR VR, and a more meaningful, impactful way, of course, with those things. In addition to that, the ability, to James's point, to educate through a almost human chatbot at that point, to teach customers about the quality of produce, what that means, how to cook a particular meal, what the definition of health is, how to continue down that path and not have to leverage an additional person, but instead leverage this humanoid chatbot essentially to cover that across all of the industry. The other thing that is also interesting too is, as the drive to online shopping, especially in the grocery industry, continues to grow, and is projected, at least in the United States, to be at 25% of all groceries bought online by 2025. I think that's still a little bit of a stretch, but you lose that human touch by shopping online. So how do you bring that reality back to the consumer and make it feel more personalized to them? Whether that's allowing them to go through the grocery store themselves virtually, that's one aspect of it. But the other would be just to connect with others who are also in the same metaverse of a grocery store shopping at the same time.
Oh, awesome. So Zach, I'll tell you one. I think there are two use cases of AR VR that we have seen, and I think fortunately our team has been able to do that. One is the using of AR VR when you are within the store. The other one is using the AR VR when you are doing the online shopping. So there are two ways of AR VR. So in a grocery store, if I use my phone and put in front of a product or through a camera, it actually gives me all the details of what exactly, without even going back to the turning the products and see what are the background. I will look at, let's say if it's a Coke bottle, a 200 ml Coke bottle or 250 ml Coke bottle, I'll just look at it. It will just give me all the details of that. If I'm looking at Nabisco biscuits, it will give me all the details of that. So what I'm saying is that's one way of looking at AR VR. The other AR VR is exactly what James was mentioning, and you were also mentioning. It was pertaining to more of the retailers, the fashion retailers, the apparel and the cosmetics and the hard goods. But I think now with what I have seen is the stores like IKEA and stores like Home Depot and all those things. Complete, how does it look like? If you give a layout of your room, how does a complete living room looks like? And you can just pick and choose, and it actually gives a replica of your entire stuff. Similarly, Home Depot and same. So I've seen a next generation of AR VR coming to the e-commerce of shopping right now, with what we look at it. So
I think the opportunity to take that to the next level might be interesting, because I think when you have, for example, from a grocery standpoint, if I was able to take my phone and scan everything that was in my refrigerator and bump that up against my purchase history and have that actually build my shopping list and also suggest things to make so I don't have dead celery in my vegetable crisper, like from a grocery standpoint, starting to understand how you use the data that you have on the consumer through your consumer data platform or your CRM, and bumping that up against what's actually in front of you, I think from a service perspective is something that I would be really interested in. And I think when we go down the path of e-commerce and where that's going, I think what we'll see is that more and more retailers are starting to sell services as a product similar to that. And as a result of that, it becomes an additional revenue stream that they can leverage for their best customers, and really starting to maximize customer value to a greater degree.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's another additive.
Correct.
Oh, sorry, Samir, go ahead.
No. I was just
No,
adding to what James said. I was just adding to it. I think again naming some customers, like it started with Best Buy's Geek Squad, if I remember correctly, but now it is up to all the retailers, like for white glove services that the retailers offer to do an installation of the furniture if you're buying something, some of the television installations or any kind of goods installation. I think those even the office space, the new virtual office space. I think if you buy an office, a small home office, they will come and install everything out there. So those are some of the extended services that you get when you go for an e-commerce retailer. Amazing. Sorry, Zach, I cut you off, but you were saying something about.
Oh no, I was just adding to James's comments there. That's just another aspect of the unified commerce shopping experience that you're going to have to add to your consumers, shopping habits.
Yeah, true. Absolutely right. Now, again, we mentioned a little bit on the AR VR, but we also touched upon the avatars and the metaverse a little bit. So I just want to jump on to that next level of innovation that we are seeing in the market, which is the metaverse and the NFTs. And how are these going to? So, Zach, I'll start with you. Have you seen that impacting the grocery retail out there in the market right now?
There has been an impact, but it's been very minimal.
Okay.
The biggest thing that we've seen retailers leverage, especially in the grocery industry in this realm, is really around retail media and how marketing plays a factor with CPG brands.
Yeah.
Over time, it will continue to grow and expand, but it's not something that I think anybody's figured out yet, which is good because it creates a blue ocean. And somebody had put in a question into the chat just now around gamification. I believe that that's something that will be leveraged as part of the metaverse of the grocery world in the future.
James, I was just going through the questions that good that you pointed out, Zach. I was looking at the questions that we have in there. But James, on to your experience with the metaverse and NFTs that we are seeing right now. So, what's your experience on those platforms?
Well, I think with the metaverse, we're starting to see virtual products mimic digital or physical products. Sorry. So as a result of that, you could buy a sweatshirt or a hoodie and have the equivalent sweatshirt or hoodie for your avatar in the metaverse. So I think things like that are pretty much niche. I would agree with Zach that people really haven't what to do with the metaverse and how we're going to monetize that and make it something that's useful. When we talk about NFTs, I think from a general e-commerce perspective, we've seen a lot of prospecting. We've seen a lot of sort of more marketing activations to start to give additional value to consumers when they buy a physical good, as well as starting to understand how you can display your picture of a bored ape on your electronic device, which Samsung was talking about being able to do. So there's things like that where I think we're early on, and I think looking at what you can do with this technology that actually solves an actual problem is something that I think we haven't quite figured out yet. Like, for example, you use NFTs to authenticate users for payment, but we haven't figured out how to do that yet. Or there's other things that, because of their nature through blockchain and Web 3.0, there are opportunities to take this, but it's so like I said, I think the advancement of headless will actually sort of help us get there a little faster. But my personal opinion is that we've been so trapped in our homes for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
That as a result of that, my interest in the metaverse is next to nil.
Okay.
Now I want to be outside and go out. Maybe that'll be different in Canada in January, and it might come back. Who knows? But at the same time, I think everyone's so focused on travel and
True.
getting out and actually seeing people in a real world that this is sort of something that has probably moved to the back burner for a lot of consumers, and as a result, probably for a lot of businesses
No,
as well.
you may be right, James. What we have seen also with the next generation of the consumers, like Gen Zs and all those people, they are so much hooked on to the metaverse. And I think I'll take Derek's question on top on this particular note, because what exactly he's saying is, do you think gamification is an effective marketing tool that can be implemented by the retailers? And I have seen gamification as a very effective tool that's being used by the retailers. And I'll give you an example. I personally am hooked on to that gamification from Starbucks.
Yes.
Starbucks app has something that you buy three of those products and you get so many stars. Again, I'm not hooked on because of stars, but it's more about I'm a user of Starbucks, right? So I try to achieve those things. But that's why I'm saying I'm hooked on to that gamification. Again, that's so Derek, to answer your question from my standpoint, I feel that it's been very effective for some of the retailers. But I'll open the floor to Zach, you and James as well. Jack, I'll start with you first.
Yeah. So to go back to Derek's question, and Samir, you're exactly right. The Starbucks program with gamifications, you just want to get that additional star. You want to level up and continue to play that way.
Right.
And it's a generational thing. You touched
Yeah.
on it when you talked about the metaverse and how that's the next generation of consumers.
Yeah.
We've grown this gaming platform, whether it's actual games or it's internet thing of things, but we've created that consumer habit that how do we make it more engaging and more personalized to that customer to want them to be more engaged with you and potentially replace using something else with whatever your gamification method is. And we're seeing that come to fruition in loyalty with our Something Extra program that we have here. And I know that Kroger and Albertsons, some of the bigger players, are also leveraging that as well.
Yeah.
So as we continue to evolve, gamification is going to be huge, just because that's where consumers are going. And I do want to touch on one thing that James said too, that yes, everybody's been locked in or staying at home or trapped for the last couple of years and want to get out and explore. But as the economy becomes more challenging and things start tightening up, that's I think where the consumers are going to leverage things like the metaverse and things like gamification to get that experience that they were missing over the last couple of years and may not be able to afford to do now.
True. So, James, I'll open this to you. I know I should be talking about Tim Hortons rather than Starbucks, but I'll open the same gamification thing for you as well, please.
I think for me, as someone who has taken a mileage haul flight in order to get to that next tier of service with Air Canada, I think gamification definitely impacts consumer behavior, but I think I also look at ways that gamification can be taken off platform. So not necessarily a direct relationship with the retailer. So, for example, Strava is an app that I use, and for some reason, you sign up for the challenge to, I don't know, run 50 kilometers in a month. And once you do that, you get a coupon for retailer XYZ. As a result of that, I'm so much more compelled to use that coupon because I feel like I ran that 50 kilometers, and as a result of that, I really worked hard in order to do. There's things like that I leverage in cities, really interesting to me because cross population that I think are more effective than just the retailer or the brand themselves.
Got it. And I agree to that, James, because you mentioned about that. I have one of my team member who is hooked on to these kind of challenges, the physical challenges, I'm saying. She participated in a Spartan race, which happened over the last weekend. And I think that's how there's a different level of gamification. I think there are some things which are pertaining to that, but amazing. I think those are so. Derek, to answer your question, I think um, maybe we were able to answer your question that gamification is a very key element of your overall marketing strategy from an overall retailer and e-commerce standpoint. So that's one thing. I'll come to the next point, which is again the marketing piece of it from a social media and marketing. I'll give you an example which I was reading a while back actually, wherein a Shopify tied up with TikTok to kind of increase the visibility of some of the products to the Snapchat users. So again, that's more. I've seen the next level of marketing using the social media. There are two things which I have seen out there. One is I think there's an influencer-led marketing that's happening because you actually clicking a selfie video and posting it, and that influencing the sales. That's one thing which we have seen. And the second one that I have seen is the sustainability part of it. So how important is the sustainability part of it from a marketing and from a digital commerce standpoint? Again, I'll start with you, James, if that's okay with you.
Certainly. For what I'm seeing in the apparel sector anyway, sustainability is becoming almost table stakes for a lot of consumers, especially younger consumers. So the challenge that the industry is having is the lack of transparency that exists in supply chains, as well as really truly understanding what the carbon footprint is, to do something differently, as well as how to measure that, and then how to benchmark that against other products or other brands. So I think we've seen some this summer a couple of large name apparel retailers get into trouble over this,
Yes.
but it's something that consumers are really starting to demand. And so I think as an industry from the apparel sector, starting to understand how everyone comes together and creates something that is tangible, real, not greenwashing, is going to be really important going forward. I think the other aspect is from a social responsibility standpoint, it's so much more than just understanding um, the environmental impact, but then also understanding the social impact. So, for example, did the person who make your goods have a good life? Are they educated? Are they being forced to do something for longer hours? As a consumer, I would love to be able to understand all of those factors on a website when I'm actually making a decision of whether or not I'm going to buy something for $10 or $15.
Yeah.
And some retailers are able to do a form of that, but not to the same level that I think consumers are actually demanding. And at the same time, it gives the ability for brands and retailers to actually stand out and get recognized for the efforts that they're starting to do. And so the radical transparency that I think consumers would like to see adopted across a broader set of products and a broader set of brands, um, I think it has to come. And I think it also gives you the ability to have more of a social credibility
Mhm.
when you start to look at the brands that you're buying, and sort of where you're wearing them and how you're wearing them and how you're talking about them on social platforms. Because we've, in this last couple of weeks, we've seen the impact of one individual, their viewpoint, and their impact on multiple companies, um, because of his speech and his opinions. And as a result of that, you start to understand the impact of social media, because without social media, it's arguable whether or not that would have the level of impact on these individual companies and brands and products without it. And so it's sort of it there's a lot of different aspects to this, and I think we're just going to see this continue to grow as a trend with consumers, and they're going to demand even more going forward.
Absolutely. And I'll Zach, I'll give you one data point before I start with you. I was reading a research or a survey wherein it was mentioned, and Jim, this is what is exactly corroborating with your point. People are kind of very much influenced by the ethics of the brand, and the people are almost like 78% of the people are now aligning to the sustainability or the ethics that the brand portrays to them. So that's the kind of effect that the people are going towards, I would say, the sustainability, the environment, and all those things. So that's with that data point, Zach, I'll probably listen from your views as well.
Yeah, James did a fantastic job of explaining how social commerce
Yeah,
is impacting the
absolutely.
retail industry. And it's not just in the retail apparel industry, it's also in consumer goods from the grocery industry as well. And Samir, you talked a little bit about how sustainability and ethically sourced products and how those things are playing a factor. The one call out that I would say is that you're seeing more and more brands align with influencers that align with their own mission as well.
True.
So they're being more choiceful, if that's even a word, and who they're picking to represent the brand.
Yeah.
And it's coming at a good time. So from the grocery retail industry, we've heard consumers, championing about this for the last 10 years. And you've seen a lot of change that has happened, whether it be like in the coffee industry or in, I guess a better example would be in the seafood industry and sustainably sourcing those products.
True.
And one of the things that I think is going to continue to evolve is how brands are aligning with those influencers, but also what the socioeconomic impact is going to be for the products in which they produce or they sell. Because even though, in the past, those brands might particularly be a little bit more expensive, it's just like the health moniker of, it costs more to eat healthy, which isn't necessarily true. It may cost more to be more socially responsible than a different brand. I don't think that is true either. So you're going to see more and more shift to that, which is just better for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely right. I think very well put, James and Zach. I think this was awesome. And I'll come to the technology aspect of the points that you mentioned about how did we procure this product, whether it was ethically procured or ethically put across. I think that's where I felt, and we have done some, at least this is of me only, we have done some kind of use cases where we have implemented the in metaverse, in that blockchain, the visibility of how did we the kind of complete track and trace of the way that you mentioned, Zach, in the very beginning of this discussion about from farm to the shelf. How is this being tracked? Which cow is this cheese coming from? I'm just not joking, but this is how the kind of track and trace is happening in a CPG industry and a retail industry, I would say. I think that's amazing, and those are some of the technologies that are enabling it. I feel that they are still on. We are just still scratching the surface right now. There may be a lot of things to it, but I'm just seeing some of the use cases, a very very preliminary use case out there actually. There's one more question that is coming on the. Again, I'm reading that question on the side. It's again, it's pertaining to the marketing. Is live streaming shopping a new trend for e-commerce? It seems in China it is already a booming market, and providers like Alibaba are leading it. Have we seen something of that in North America? James, I'll start with you.
I've seen many
Hmm.
attempts to make this work in North America. I haven't seen anyone that's doing it really well and really effectively and continuing to do it.
Hmm.
Um, I think when you look at what's going on in Asia with KOLs or key opinion
Right.
leaders that are doing the live streaming, they're essentially influencers on their own right, and they're essentially taking that sort of influence and making essentially doing live shopping similar to what we have on network TV now. So when Joan Rivers was doing her, I think it was jewelry on the different shopping channels, it's the same thing, but they've taken it online in Asia. I haven't seen that come, but I think one of the things that we're starting to see with subscriptions on sort of more mainstream or G-rated platforms like Twitter and Instagram, where you can actually connect with an influencer for a fee. You may start to see some more commerce actually happen past just the subscription. So maybe it's an opportunity to really engage with someone, and as a result of that, there's some sort of custom product that is sold and explained, or there's the ability to interact with a influencer, and as a result, you co-design something. As an example, from a custom standpoint. So I think we haven't, for whatever reason, I don't understand what it is that in North America or the West we just haven't gotten to that point yet. I think it'll look a little different than what it does in Asia today, because it's pretty widespread. But I think it's something that's really interesting, and we need to continue to watch and innovate.
Sure. Thank you, Zach. Your views, please.
Yeah, I would echo James's sentiment. I think this is something that has existed for a long time and it continues to evolve. And I think as the generations change and the demand change, it goes back up to that gamification question and how you can turn that into more of a gamification with the influencers that are potentially selling the product or even the brands themselves. So now you're looking at cutting out, essentially going to or changing it to being direct to consumer rather than going direct to business or
Yeah.
business to business. So as this continues to evolve, I do think that this is going to be something that continues to grow, but
Okay.
to the scale, to the extent that we're seeing in Asia, I don't know if we'll ever get there in the West.
Got it. Okay. I have a little different segue here. I will talk about a little bit more on the mobile commerce, or I would say the e-commerce on mobile, and how the mobile have impacted, yeah, our I would say e-commerce journey. And especially, I will talk about two things. One is, I think the way that we are able to order on mobile, track our orders on mobile, and do almost everything on mobile. I think that is one thing which has completely transformed our e-commerce experience out there. So I would start, Zach, with you on the grocery. How have you seen that on the grocery side, on the mobile part?
Yeah, I would say over the last 5 to 7 years, the idea of using a device to track everything
Right.
was, a specialty, and it's now become more, a necessity
Yeah.
to do those things. And Samir, you brought up a good point: is you can actually be more interactive with your shopping experience doing it through your mobile device than you can going into the store in certain cases,
True.
because you have access to more information, you have access to and James's example earlier, he could track the driver from when they left the store to when they arrived at his location where he was at. So
Mhm.
being able to secure it and make it feel impactful to the consumer is huge. The other piece that I would say is that driving an in-store technology components as well. So consumers are using their device in store to get notifications on offers or notifications on deals, or back to that gamification piece around loyalty. So you're able to pay at the check stand with your phone rather than having to pull out a physical card or physical payment method. Or you're able to order in advance before you get to the store to get some of the products that you potentially had to wait in line previously for. So
Yeah.
consumers are using it to expedite their shopping experience, but also improve their visibility on what exactly is happening with their orders.
True, absolutely right. And James, before I come to you, I'll give you my experience. I've been using my mobile device for all the big stores where I do a scan, pay, and go straight away. I scan it my phone. I just pay my credit card and walk out of the store. I don't have to stand in the queues. I think there are less queues now, but I still don't have to stand in the queues at the checkout counters. I just use my mobile phone, and there are a lot of people, at least I would say the generation that just before Generation Z's, I think those are the people who are using that device as well as for their mobile checkouts and all those things. Earlier, we used to have queue busters and all those things. I think those concepts are no longer required. I think this is one thing which anybody is doing right now. So, James, I would like to hear
It's
from
interesting.
you actually.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because two things. One, I was had the experience of losing my wallet recently, but didn't lose my phone when I was traveling, and as a result of that, I was so enabled by the fact that I still had my phone and I was actually able to
Yeah.
transact. So I think looking at the importance of your phone in your life is so different than what it was even 5 years ago. And then the ability to sort of take the extensions of the fact that it's a computer with a camera and a microphone.
Yes.
And so you have all of these additional capabilities that don't exist really effectively on a laptop or or desktop computer. And so taking those capabilities and really leveraging them for the use cases that we were talking about previously around AR or VR means that it's something that consumers are somewhat familiar with. It's their own device. You're not, as a brand, investing in technology that has to sit in your store for them to interact, often in a very awkward way, in a public
Hmm.
way. And then also the ability to start to understand how do you leverage their devices to actually interact with consumers in a bigger way. So whether it's QR codes in the store, tags in the store, but then from a merchant perspective, having the ability to sort of go away from the cash wrap perspective, where the centralized point of checkout happens, and have the ability to have the consumer progressively check out in their customer journey, for example, in grocery, or in some other specialty apparel retailers. The technology is starting to roll out where you can do phone to phone
True.
transactions, which is something that is really interesting. And as a result, will we need these hard and fast big computers in a centralized location anymore when it can be essentially just like Apple, where everyone can check out from everywhere? You may not necessarily even need to talk to someone. And it's something that I'm starting to see at more and more brands. Like, for example, I think Burton launched some of that technology in the last few months, and we're going to start to see that adopted more broadly. Which I think, from the consumer standpoint, especially during peak periods, it makes my experience
Absolutely.
much more gratifying by the fact that I don't have to wait, and I can get in, get out when I need to. And also, I've got all my information all stored, which hopefully, most likely, is going through an app. And as a retailer, I'm starting to gather more data without actually having to build that sort of black book manually.
No, absolutely. And I think one point which I have, I would say, again, it may not be directly related to e-commerce, but one of the things, since I'm having using my phone, is the AR navigation within the store. So you can actually use your, even if you are going to go for the experience, it's all about experience, right? You want to go, I'm giving an example of Walmart. You know that you have to pick up certain product. You can just check in. It will tell you the aisle number and everything. You can just go to that aisle, pick up the product, and move out. I'm saying those are, that may not be directly e-commerce, but it's something which is augmenting your experience at any of the stores out there. And this is an app which is not only Walmart, Target is using it, Home Depot uses it, Lowe's. Think about all the retailers that are there; they all are using those kind of stuff, and it's just making the life easier for everybody out there.
Yeah, I would add, Samir, your ability to create the one-to-one experience through the
Yeah,
mobile device
yeah,
is really the key benefit. And James
absolutely,
said it very well. But as you continue to drive down that personalization path and allow the customer to interact more rapidly and get the data and learn about that customer to where you're providing them with the experiences in which they're driving for.
absolutely. I'll ask one question on, and then I'll move to a different topic. James, I'll ask you this question: what app on your phone would give you an anxiety if we deleted it for 4 weeks? I want to ask this question to you.
For me, I think it would be Instagram, which I think somewhat shows my age. It's not TikTok, but I think using that not only from a creative and visual standpoint and entertainment. I also use that to find new products, find new places, find new restaurants. So it's becoming the secondary search engine for me,
Absolutely.
as opposed to going to Google. For lifestyle type activities and products, I tend to go to Instagram first and foremost, just to see what's on trend and where I want to go. So yeah, I would have a really hard time letting go for 4 weeks. But if I was younger, it might be something different.
But you're right. Actually, this is the best, the live social media thing, which actually keeps you updated on every single trends that is existing right now, whether it's food, lifestyle, any of those things. You get it all on Instagram. Zach, do you have any such app which you will be nervous about?
I do, and I don't know if I should admit this or not, but it's TikTok. The amount of things that I've learned from TikTok over the last year is impressive.
Wow, awesome. So I'll take a segue a little bit on that one. So I know we spoke about a lot of things on the e-commerce. Let me take another side of the story. Like I'll take the story of Amazon and how Amazon is going back and going into the brick and mortar. And this is the same Amazon which was not promoting the brick and mortar. It was the e-commerce that started with the books and everything, and it was one of the biggest e-commerce success stories out there. And most of the retailers, brick and mortar, was jumping into the e-commerce bandwagon because of Amazon. But now with them integrating back into their kind of, how do you think this is going to change the overall landscape of retailing and the e-commerce? Zach, I'll start with you first.
Yeah. So from the grocery aspect of things, they're trying to, in my opinion, they're trying to create a different experience. So they're standing up brick and mortar grocery stores with their Amazon Fresh models, but they're putting all their technology into it so that you don't necessarily have to interact with a human being while you're inside the store. You can do everything from your app or from your device, but they've created that unified commerce shopping experience where you can get the product in store at the time in which you want to get it. But if there's something in addition to that that you order from Amazon.com or through the app, you can have it delivered to your house. And sometimes you can get it to your house before you make it back from the physical store to your home location. The other proponent is they're trying to capture you at any touch point in which they can. So
Yeah.
thinking about it from a purchase standpoint and whatever those products may be, they want to be that one-stop shop. And the thing that Amazon has done very, very well is expanding their their digital capabilities at a rapid pace. In fact, it's so rapid that it's influenced a lot of companies such as Rayleigh's with their e-commerce and digital innovation channels. So that's where I think that ties together. So their digital, I can't even say the word.
This is digital, right? 5 digital or something, right? I don't remember.
Yeah. Are just allowing a methodology of you coming in and interacting with them through their app.
Yeah, absolutely. And James, I would also talk a little bit about the various. One is obviously the kind of. It's not only Amazon, to be very honest with you. It is across board. You may actually have seen a lot of stores in the airport also, where it's all scan, pay, and go. Right? You just use your digital app or maybe your credit card or a fingerprint. Usually, fingerprint is less used, but mostly the digital app to walk into the store, pick up the stuff, just walk out. That's one model out there. There's another model that we have seen is about the smart checkout, using computer vision cameras and everything to scan your products, and just you just need to lay your products in your shopping cart in a certain way. The computer vision camera will scan it and you just have to go out. I think those are some of those things that we have seen, the very innovation way. Now this is a, I would say this is a cusp between the digital and the brick and mortar store, where we are implementing, and as Zach exactly mentioned, we are implementing all kind of technologies which we used to have for our e-commerce platform now being implemented for our physical stores. So Zach, sorry, James, I'll come to you on that one. And what's your view on those formats?
Well, I think one thing is, excuse me, the reason to have a physical location is also for a marketing initiative. So, it used to be you would put a big flagship store on a high street, and as a result of that, start to have a destination where people or consumers would interact with new products and the latest and greatest products, and then those influencers would then expand their circle of influence. I think we're seeing that that is also necessary from an e-commerce pure play
Mm-hmm.
perspective, and there isn't necessarily the store being located on the high street. It could be in your local mall. You look at the Tesla model as an example. I mean, they really don't invest anything in advertising. But when you go through the mall and actually see a car, you're seeing a car when you weren't necessarily looking to shop for a car. So there's that aspect of it. I think when you talk about taking e-commerce technology into the physical space, we've had a lot of great examples about what you can do with your phone and also service enablement for the sales associate. But there's also the ability to start to look at checkout in a bigger way, like you were mentioning. I think the real use case scenario that I've seen that's been the most effective and most interesting to me is what Decathlon is doing, with essentially you drop all the items into your shopping
Yep.
bag, that calculates it all, and away you go.
Absolutely.
So it's almost an instant transaction. So I think that really, for the most part, is e-commerce focused technology that's being applied in the real world scenario.
Mhm.
And it's being done in a very seamless and effective way for consumers. And as a result of that, I think we'll start to see more and more of that going forward.
Absolutely, absolutely right. I think James, this is awesome. I'll come to the last, I would say, last topic, which is, I think James, you mentioned in the beginning of the call, this is one of the I would say nobody has been able to achieve that. Now the data, basically, how effectively are we utilizing that data to reach out to our customers in an effective way, to create a targeted campaigns, to create a targeted promotions, to know our customer first of all in a better way, so that we can reach out to them. So again, James, since we mentioned that you brought up this point in the very first time, I would want to start with you. And what is first of all where we are today, and what is the next step, or next generation for this on data?
I think from my perspective as a consumer, we're starting to see actually grocery do this very
Mhm.
well, and do customized upsell and recommendations and points offers and all these things via apps. I think quick service restaurants, for example, you mentioned Starbucks as an option. I would also argue that Tim
Yeah.
Hortons is actually fairly good as well. But then past that, I think really starting to understand how we take that and sort of migrate it to be something different and unique, that is adopted by sort of lower term or lower velocity transactions. Like, for example, because I have my history in the apparel sector, I get a lot of emails, and I would say that only 80% of them are actually focused in on product that is addressed to me, because it's typically for
Mhm.
females, with sort of a small men's section on the bottom. And it oftentimes also includes product that I've already purchased. So starting to understand how you take sort of these industries that have a lot of data points, because of the velocity or the frequency of visit or spend, and start to do more information and more marketing automation for a high touch brand, I think is going to be really interesting and different, and hopefully make that brand affinity much stronger.
Awesome. Zach, James mentioned about the grocery, so I would like to hear from you on the grocery side as well.
Yeah, James is right. When you think about the velocity and frequency of purchase, we're able to gather more data about a consumer and be able to serve up things that make more sense to that said consumer.
Mhm.
Especially in the grocery industry where you're buying the same products more frequently and more
Right.
often. So understanding your consumers is going to be huge. The other component that I would add is in the grocery industry, you have the ability to sequester additional information from a consumer around their dietary habits or their purchase habits as well. So then you can start promoting or leading customers into products that they potentially should buy, tying them back to promotions. So with our Something Extra program, which is our loyalty program, we've built out different types of personas, and right now we only have a handful of them. But
Mhm.
as more and more data comes in, and we get a little bit more AI around what our consumer habits are and how they're changing, I expect those personas to be massive. So
Yeah.
we won't have just making this up 10 personas, but maybe we have 1,000, and then maybe
Absolutely.
eventually it gets down to that one-to-one transaction that I was referencing earlier in the call. Ultimately, we're getting a lot of data, but in the grocery industry specifically, a lot of regional players aren't leveraging the data to the extent that they should be. You're
Yeah.
starting to see that more with some of the larger players
True.
doing a very good job with it. So,
Absolutely. I think great point, Zach and James. I think that's one area which is, I would say, which will see a lot of, which has a lot of potential, first of all, and it will see a lot of growth. A new, I think people are building a lot of algorithms, and data sciences are being put in there to gather all those data points, churn out all those algorithm to kind of come up with some kind of models how to target the customers. But I feel that we are in a place where which it still needs a lot of the sanity of the data, the utilization of the data is very, very, I would say, nascent right now. That's my take on that one. I see Nitin coming back, so I think we are probably end of time. So I'll just summarize, and I'll give maybe a couple of minutes for us to summarize. I'll just summarize a little bit. I think one of the things that we are seeing as e-commerce trend is how quickly and how close can we get to the customer. That's one thing which we are trying to do. How agile we are in terms of servicing our customers, in terms of supply chain, the agility in terms of delivering the same day, delivering in 2 hours time. I think all those models are available out there. And then obviously how quickly can we pick up the new technologies, the innovation areas, whether we talk about blockchain, whether we talk about metaverse, whether we talk about IoTs, computer visions, everything out there to service and reach out to the customer. So that's my three-way or three-point of view, I would say, to kind of what's the next generation as for us in the e-commerce side. Zach, any closing remarks from your side?
Yeah, the only thing that I would add, and that was a great summary, Samir, is that always maintain what your customers are looking for or asking, and don't push too far too fast with it. Because the last thing you want to do is provide a subpar service that another retailer or another industry is going to do better than you. So make sure that you're moving at the right pace and not expanding too fast.
Wonderful. Thank you. James, closing remarks?
I would just echo the conversation that both you, Samir, and Zach have said about, it's really important to know your customer, know your customer's journey on adoption, and also understand where your customer's journey actually fits with your brand. For example, at one point I was encouraged to set up a store on Second Life. And so as a result, that's no longer a trend. And as a result of that, that also didn't fit with our brand and our brand vision and mission. So understanding how you can take new technology and adopt it to not only fit your customer's position, but also your brand promise and your brand statement, I think is also key.
Got it. Thank you. So Nitin, I think we first of all, let me thank James and Zach for a wonderful discussion. It was really insightful, and it was coming from, I would say, the experienced people from their respective industries, especially Zach. I think from a grocery perspective, amazing insights, I would say. And James, you have been across all the industries. I know you mentioned that you have been tagged along as an apparel retailer, but I think your knowledge across industry has been phenomenal. So thank you very much, guys, for joining us for this panel discussion. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Just to wrap up, we would like to thank our community partners, speakers, and attendees who came together for enriching knowledge through this forum. We had a great set of panel speakers who came together to share thoughts. Just for your information, today's event was broadcasted in the YouTube and Facebook page of our company. So all of you can go and see the recording anytime. Please log on to our website and like the social media channels. We'll be sharing lots of knowledge sharing topics, details, announcement of next events, and much more, which will help you register and attend the same. Also, we would like to thank InfoVision, which is our knowledge and innovation partner, and Digit7, who is our technology partner. Digit7 also have a great innovation lab of 15,000 square feet in Richardson, Texas, and any one of you who are dropping by can always go to the office and have a look to feel that. To understand more in depth, connect with them, and to suggest any aspect, all of you can go through their website, which is infovision.com and digit7.io. Closely liaison with them. Further, there are lots more in store for this month and subsequent months as well, with focus on banking, financial, insurance, telecom, retail, healthcare, manufacturing, energy, supply chain, utility, and so on. So request all of you to keep connected with us and enjoy the learning. Thanks, and do take good care of yourself. Have a lovely day and week ahead. Bye, guys.
Thank you, Nitin. This was a great platform. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Samir. Thank you for the... Thank you, James.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one.
Thank you.